system. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 6, Canto 3, chapter 6, text number 33. Like I've said earlier on, speaker for today is Grace Vaisakhi Prabhu, who is supposed to be speaking with us, is not here. So we'll continue to read, and hopefully maybe he joins us while in the process, and then we'll take it over from there. But in the meantime, we'll start with the text for today. Hare Krishna. Padim Bhagavato Gyatni Susrusha Dharmasidaye Tasyam Jatapura Sudro Yadvritya Tusyate Hari Padyam Bhagavato Gyatni Susrusha Dharmasidaye Tasyam Jatapura Sudro Yadvritya Tusyate Hari Padyam Bhagavato Jagni Shushrusha Dharmasidaye Tasyaham Jatapura Sudro Vyadritya Tusyate Hari. Word for translation. Padyam, from the legs, Bhagavata, of the personality of God, Jagni, became manifested, Shushrusha, service, Dharmaha, occupational duty, Sidaye, for the matter of Tasyaham, in that, Jataha, being generated, Pura, formally, Sudraha, the servitors, Yat, Fritya, the occupational by which Tusyate becomes satisfied, Ari, the supreme personality of Godhead. Translation on purport by His Divine Grace, Abai Charanaravinda Siba, Actividenti Swami Patita, Pavandaga Gusha Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Sudras who satisfy the Lord by service. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. The living entities are meant to render service to the Lord, and they can attain religious perfection by this service attitude. One cannot attain religious perfection simply by speculating to attain theoretical knowledge. The Jnani division of spiritualists go on speculating only to distinguish the soul from matter, but they have no information of the activities of the soul. After being liberated by knowledge, it is said that persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are and who do not engage in this transcendental loving service of the Lord are simply wasting their time. It is clearly said here that the principles of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last name of the every external energy is the perception of becoming one with the Lord. And due to this conception, the illusion soul remains in the bondage of
Ami, ça va? Je n'ai pas dit ça aujourd'hui, hein? Pardon.
Sorry for that interruption. I'll take that paragraph again. It is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others, illusioned by the external energy of the Lord. He is forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of the illusory energy, external energy, is the conception of becoming one with the Lord. And due to this conception, the illusion souls remains in the bondage of material energy, falsely thinking himself a liberated soul and as good as Narayan. It is actually better to be a Sudra than to be Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. Because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. Every living being, even if he is a Brahmana, by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam support this service attitude is the perfection of the living entity. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. A Brahmana is supposed to know this perfect due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. The other sections are supposed to follow the direction of the Brahmana, Vaishnava. One who is a Brahmana by qualification and a Vaishnava by action. That will make the entire society perfect in regards to the order of its social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord, even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position, he becomes a perfect human being simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Personality of God, the Supreme Lord. Om Gyanam Timirandasya Gyanam Gyanam Shalakaya Shaksho Melitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Sri Shitaya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadantikam Padantikam Bandyam Sri Guru Sri Yuta Pada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavancha Sri Rupa Sagrajatam Saganam Radgunatantam Sahajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Saganam Lalita Sri Vishakavitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Shindu Dinabandhu Jagapati Gopisha Gopika Kantara Dakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangira Devinda Vaneshwari Prishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Mukankaroti Bachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yat Kripatamam Bande Shri Guru Dinatarina Vanchakarpataru Vyascha Kripa Sundubhya Sevascha Patitanam Pavashnevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So we take the verse today again. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious functions. Situated on the legs are the Sudras who satisfy the Lord by service. Hare Krishna. So once again, we welcome all of the devotees to the Hare Krishna Africa platform for today's Srimad Bhagavatam series lecture. Today is the 6th day of the month of March in the year 2025. And like I mentioned earlier on, we are supposed to be hearing today from our dear God, senior God brother, His Grace Sri Vaisakhi Prabhu, who is like a father to all of us, one of the main mentor. When we joined the devotional service was Vaisakhi Prabhu, who most of us, I'm sure, must have listened to his wonderful bhajan and kirtan. It was very famous in the beginning days. So we were hoping that we'll have Vaisakhi Prabhu here today, but for some reasons beyond our understanding presently, he's not here. So Bhagavatam had to continue. So therefore, I'm going to try to share some few realization on the text we're reading today as given by Srila Prabhupada in his translation and the purport. So the text today, so I beg for the blessings of each and every devotee here that I may be able to do this service for the pleasure of the Lord and for the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. So today the text is a continuation of the chapter 6 of the third canto, which is subject creation of the universal form. And then the text that we're reading this afternoon, my local time, is talking about the essence of the constitutional position of the living entity in the creation of the Lord. The creation of the universal form. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna had already told Arjuna in a clear statement in the Chatusloki verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhava mata sarva pravata iti matwa bhajante mam buddhabhava samavita. That everything animate and inanimate is emanating from me. So we know that everything that is existing has no independency outside of the independent nature of the independent supreme personality of Godhead. So this verse and many other verses like this are confirming the same assertion of Krishna, that everything is emanating from him. And the living entities who are, according to the Lord, as himself described in the later part of the Bhagavad Gita, where he explained that living entity, Mamaivam Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta, Sanatana, Mana Chakchan Tridiyani, Prakriti Stani Karshati, that the living entities are my fragmental part and parcel. So that also is confirming the text we're reading today. It's all confirmation of several other verses like this in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna asserts his position and the living entity's connection to him. In the chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm the seed-giving father of all. So these and many other verses, Krishna has already established the fact that the living entity is fragmental part and parcel. And in the whole cosmic creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is the topic of this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, here we're hearing how the manifestation from the legs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes place. And what is the constitutional nature of that manifestation of service? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained to us that service is the constitutional occupation of the living entity. Because the nature of the part is naturally to serve the whole. The part becomes irrelevant, unuseful, unimportant when it is not connected to the whole. We are the living entities. We have different parts of our body. We have the hand, the leg, the eyes, the nose, the nostrils, the belly, and all different parts of our body, which is the covering of the self. And all of these parts are wonderful as long as they are connected to our body. If the hand, which is so beautiful, we're very proud of our hand, of our face, of our leg, any part of this body. When it is severed out of the body, after 24 hours, we don't want to be associated with it any longer. If somehow or the other we're still alive to witness the severance of that part of our body, because it becomes disgusting, it becomes smelling, it becomes completely irritable to us. In the same way, the living entity, which are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becomes irritable when it is not connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what is that connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It is service. It is the service that connects the living entities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, in the 21st century, in Kali Yuga especially, people want to connect to God as a business partner, as a business employee. And people develop all kinds of false attitudinal mood of connecting with the Lord, which are not sustainable, because those relationships they want to form with the Lord is not sustainable, it's not natural. And because it is not natural, it does not sustain. And because it's not sustaining, it does not give satisfaction to the self. The constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a part and parcel of the Lord is to render service. And for this purpose, the Lord creates a template for the soul to be able to exhibit this. And sometimes, just like in the material world, the tool becomes sometimes destructive to the purpose of his creation. The caste system or the Varna and ashrams, Lord Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Shato Vanyam Maya Sristam, Guna Karma Vibhagasa. The four social orders and spiritual order of life is created by me. The purpose is one, only one purpose, for service of this Lord. So when this purpose is misled, when this purpose is lost, when one loses the purpose, the goal becomes uneasily attainable. But when one understands the goal, when one understands the purpose behind any endeavor or activities, the goal becomes easily attainable. So when the living entity, irrespective of their social, spiritual orders of life, loses the focus on the essence or the purpose behind the whole of the manifestation of Krishna, then they become disgruntled. And they experience all kinds of horrendous situation that is completely catastrophic. The whole material world, especially in this Kali Yuga, is suffering like anything. And the materialistic persons are struggling to give some kinds of solutions, some kind of succor. They're giving all kinds of arrangements. They're making so much of effort day after day. But each and every effort they are making is frustrating. Why? Because these are all artificial. It has no basis of the purpose behind it. When the purpose for which something is created is lost, then no matter what is created becomes a problematic situation. There are so many examples in our day-to-day life. We can see this happening. For example, we all eat every day. And if the purpose for us to eat is just to cook and eat, then we lose the purpose of eating. Because at the end of the day, that eating process will kill us and will put an end to our existence. The purpose of eating is to give nourishment to the body, to sustain it for the service that the soul has to do inside the body. Just like a vehicle, a motor car is so wonderful. It has its purpose. So the living entity, as fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, it has its purpose for its creation. So Srila Prabhupada emphatically clarified here in the first stanzas. When you look at Srila Prabhupada's purpose, Prabhupada is very, very expert in presenting Krishna consciousness. Whenever Prabhupada takes any topic, when you look at the first paragraph, first sentence Prabhupada will give, and the last sentence of the paragraph, Prabhupada completes whatever he intends, the purpose or the goal of that particular text. So in the first sentence, the Prabhupada said, in a straightforward statement, service is the real constitutional occupation of the living entity. But service to who? That we will come back to. But here, establishment is made, the living entities are meant to render service to the Lord. That is the purpose of their manifestation. Their separated manifestation out of the body of the Lord is for this purpose only, to give pleasure to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. And they can attain their religious perfection, the spiritual perfection, by this service attitude only. So therefore, when one loses this focus, the Chateau Vaniam, or the four social and spiritual orders of life, also becomes useless. And that is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Ashtakam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his conversation with Ramananda Rai, he rejected Vanashram Dham. He said, no, this is external, because it is a powerful process presented just like the so many solutions that we found in the material world, the materialistic persons are making. They're creating so many material solutions, but because they forget, they do not know, or they do not understand, or they intentionally want to forget the purpose behind human life, whatever solution they are giving is external, and therefore it does not make of any value. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Ramananda Rai, this four social and spiritual order of life, it is wonderful. I created it for the purpose of rendering service to me. But when it is not connected to servicing, if this Vana and Ashram are not geared towards enhancing the service attitude to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then what is it? It becomes a disturbance. And that is why we see when in India, when the caste system it develops, because the materialistic person, and Prabhupada used a perfect example, the Gyani, because of their division of, although they are spiritualists, but because they are trying to find a distinguishing factor between matter and spirit, they're trying to, by analytical process, try to understand without the original purpose of the manifesto, of the whole of the gigantic manifestation, because they're trying to give a meaning. They're trying to find a meaning. And that is why the living entity falls into problem. All of the crises of the world today are all around this. Why? Because people are struggling to understand things based on their own mind, their own senses. And the material living entity senses are already described in the Vedic literature. They are filled with 4 defects. The living entity in the material body is illusion. And because it's illusion, it tends to make mistake. And because it makes mistake, out of ego, he wants to cover that mistake. Then he starts cheating. So this condition situation makes the living entity faulty in its endeavor to analytically study the Supreme Personality of God. The process that is given here is what? And that is why Krishna, in the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, the whole of the Bhagavatam, the whole of the Vedic literatures, everything comes back to some only conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Sarvadharma parityaja mamikam saranam vraja. Mamikam saranam aham tvam savapabibi muksham ishyami masusha. To surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In what way? In service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, the Prabhupada explains further in the purport that it is clearly said here in this text that we are discussing this moment, that the principles of service was generated from the leg of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. Now, like I mentioned before, when we talk about service, people misunderstand what service is. And so therefore we have people, the communists, for an example, wants to give service to the society. So they said there must be a centralized system. And Prabhupada said this is not wrong. Communism is not wrong. But communism without Krishna in the center becomes a foolish endeavor. Still, again, losing the focus for which communism is meant to be. So in this material world, no one wants to be a servant, because everyone wants to become the master. And because of this false mastership, as Prabhupada put it, people becomes completely bewildered. And this bewilderment leads to so many conditional disease situations in the material world. And when one falls into this situation, he is forced to become the servant of his senses. And when he's a little bit advanced from the servant of his senses, he wants to serve his family. So therefore, we see in the material world a gross, selfish person He's just concerned about himself and himself alone. This person is said to be in the mode of ignorance. He doesn't care about anything on anybody. He's only thinking about himself, his senses, and his mind is intelligent. And when he's a little bit advanced, he tries to become a moralist. He starts thinking about, oh, my family, my extended family, oh, my country, oh, my nation, my continent. And when he goes beyond that, then he starts thinking, then he wants to give service to the demigods. And when he goes beyond that, when ultimately he becomes free from all of these diverted mood of services, he becomes realized. And then, so therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Bahunam Jammanam Ante, Genamam Prapadyanti, Vasudev Savamiti, Sa Mahatma Suduhalaba, that after many, Bahunam, after many births, deaths, old age and diseases, cycle of samsara, if one, Bahunam Jammanam, when it becomes knowledgeable, when one actually have developed knowledge, real knowledge, then one becomes what? Vasudeva Sabhamiti. One understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one understands that since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes free from the last snare of illusion, which is what Prabhupada described here, this conception of being the Lord. Recently, I was following a story in my local country here. There's an organization, and for public purpose, I do want to mention name. But some people who knows OOO organization is a kind of a form of religious organization locally. And then is that what Prabhupada says here? Fix that personality who was behind the organization. So he claims I'm God. And Prabhupada call it here the last night of illusory energy. They want to become one with the Lord or become the Lord themselves. So this gentleman says, I'm God. I'm the God, I'm the creator of everything. Everything is coming from me. He is claiming the position of Krishna. But after some time, according to material nature, he falls to the condition of a conditioned soul, and he falls sick, and eventually he died. And when he died, there was a catastrophe. Those who are remaining, the children, the members, the trustees, they confused about what to do. So for several years, they kept his body. They do not know what to do because he is God. They cannot even appoint a next person because God, who is going to replace God? So, and this is specific God. And they could not tell the public that God has died. But then, after some time, the continuity, to satisfy their ego, they brought the son of the God to become God. And because he came, he is not God, he started misbehaving, he started fumbling like anything. So after some time, the trustees of the organization, they come forward, they said, no, we can no longer allow this person. This organization is not a family tradition. And then so they break it down. They said it's not a family tradition. So the trustees have to appoint who is going to become God. So this is the manifestation of the grossness of conditional mind. So in Krishna consciousness, one who is fortunate to be on this path is wise. He is intelligent by association. And Prabhupada come to explain in the next paragraph of the purport. Prabhupada said it's actually better to be a servant and the Prabhupada is talking about the service attitude in relation to the Varna and Ashram. The mentality, even in spiritual life, sometimes when somebody thinks himself, Brahmana is the head of the society, sannyasi is the head of the social order. When one gets captured by this mentality, then one becomes disillusioned also again. So Prabhupada is saying, Brahmana level, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, these are all wonderful as long as they are connected to what? Qualification of a Vaishnava action, unless they are connection to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada says something beautiful here in concluding the purport, that it does not even matter if one is not even a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, a Sudra, or whatever. If he's engaged, automatically he becomes qualified. Why? Because the ultimate purpose is served. So therefore, as we meditate, we reflect on this verse of today, we should understand the position of bhakti. And bhakti is that process that gives the opportunity for living entity to know, to direct him towards rendering service in the right direction. And that is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he told Arjuna in the chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, he said, Susukam avyayam. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, Lord Krishna is saying, this process of Krishna consciousness is the perfection of all religious activities. It is the purest of the purest. And because it gives direct perception of the self, it is joyfully performed. So this Krishna consciousness is the perfection of all process of endeavor, whether in the category of religiosity, in the category of social order or spiritual order. One who is somehow or other becomes fortunate to connect himself to a Vaishnava Brahmana. Proper distinctively spelled out this. It's not just becoming a Brahmana, but a Brahmana who is a Vaishnava. In other words, if one just become a Brahmana and is not a Vaishnava, he cannot liberate himself, talk less of liberating others. So devotional service is the topmost level of attainment of all endeavor. And when one comes to this level of bhakti, the level of the Vaishnava Brahmana, Prabhupada even said in one of his lectures that one does not even necessarily need to become a Vaishya or Brahmana or what have you. One who becomes a Vaishnava automatically is a Brahmana. A Brahmana means one who knows the self, one who knows Aham Brahmasmi, he knows the difference between the soul and the body. But a Vaishnava, one who is a devotee of the Lord, automatically attains beyond that position, because a Vaishnava is the whole of the process of becoming of fulfilling the orders of the Vana and Ashram is to come to the point of becoming a Vaishnava. And when one becomes a Vaishnava, then he automatically is a Brahmana. Even when he's a Grihastha, when he's in the household life, he's the topmost sannyasi. Because why? He is engaged in the ultimate purpose of all of the creation of these social and spiritual orders of life. So the purpose behind anything must be known for one to be able to easily attain the goal of that particular process. So in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada concluded by giving us this particular conclusion that will, he said, Prabhupada said that the other sections are supposed to follow. He said, Prabhupada said, a Brahmana is supposed to know this fact due to what fact? A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can perfect his occupational duty only by rendering service unto the Lord. In other words, if one is a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, a Sudra, if he knows the duty of rendering service to the Lord, he is not a Brahmana, he is not a Vaishya, he is not a Kshatriya. So a Brahmana, Vaishya can perfect his occupational duty by rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A Brahmana is supposed to know this fact due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. The other sections are supposed to follow the directions of the Brahmana Vaishnava. And Prabhupada put it, when Prabhupada uses the word, he said Brahmana Vaishnava, not just a Brahmana. Because just being a Brahmana is not enough. And Prabhupada put in the purport, in bracket, one who is a Brahmana by qualification and a Vaishnava by action. That will make the entire society perfect in regards to the order of its social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord. Even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, or Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position, he becomes a perfect human being simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the conclusion of all revealed scriptures, that one should come to this perfection of life, somehow or the other. If one should come to this perfection of human life or to the perfection of spiritual life by doing by becoming a bhakta, by becoming a devotee. And who is a devotee? One who renders service favorably to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like Srila Rupa Goswami says, there are 6 favorable activities that enhances bhakti, and there are 6 unfavorable activities that distort that disturbs or that impede the process of devotional service in the nectar of instructions. So therefore, as a Vaishnava, as we engage in all activities, whether we are being a temple president, a chatria, a vice chair, or a temple commander, or ISKCON member, or a Krishna devotee, or whatever it is, the external identification we identify it, we should understand the purpose to come to that point where we are able to render loving service to the Supreme Personality of God in devotional service. That is the goal. That is the purpose, and that is the constitutional nature. That is the constitutional position of the living entity in the material world. Anything short of that is just illusion, and that illusion can be extended to any level. But then a devotee understands that this is the purpose. So therefore, he constantly, always engage in devotional service, and that is why Lord Krishna told Arjuna, "Satatam krita yantu mam." Satatam krita yantu mam means that what? They are always constantly engaged in my devotional service. That is the position of a devotee of the Lord. It does not matter which category we put him externally, but because he's constantly always engaged in devotional service, in his talk, in his walk, in his eating, in his sleeping, in his every activities, he's always engaged in devotional service. So he is the topmost of all, because what is connected to the Supreme Personality of God in Krishna consciousness by devotional service. So thank you very much. I will stop here and then give opportunity for discussions further. It's a great opportunity to have these interactions with all of you. And if there are questions or comments or contributions, please kindly unmute or raise your hand. I will call you to unmute yourself and give your comment. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Can anyone hear me? I hope I'm not speaking to myself.
Yes, Your Grace. Your Grace, we can hear you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bhakta Zan.
Please kindly accept my respectful obeisances. All glory to Gurudev, all glory to the Prabhupada, and all glory to the wonderful Samuel devotees.
Hare Krishna.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really love and enjoy listening to you. The way you flow, the way you speak, the scriptures, it's really amazing. And thank you so much. And you inspire me a lot.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
And Hare Krishna, Your Grace.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, SALIKA Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you for stepping in to do this. But your submission when you were talking about that the service attitude was generated from the legs of the universal form.
Exactly.
And then you said one thing also. You said when we talk of service attitude, it's not like any ordinary service. It should be service. What do we call it? I've forgotten exactly how you put it. You said it's not a service like the ordinary service in the material world, but it's a service, the service attitude to the Lord. Did you say that?
Yes, actually, I was actually paraphrasing what Srila Prabhupada himself said in the purport. Yeah, that we should be, I'm trying to look exactly how Prabhupada put it in the purport. Prabhupada said, generated from the Lord perfection is different from, okay. Prabhupada said, it is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. So that's how Prabhupada put it. So when I was speaking, I was just trying to put that into my own word. That when we talk about service, we're talking about service.
So my question is, it is known that the universal form doesn't exist in the spiritual world. The universal form only exists in the material world.
Exactly.
Okay, so the manifestation of the service attitude in the legs of the universal form, then that should basically tell us that that service attitude is made manifest in the material world. And if it's made manifest in the material world, then how can we exclude any other service in the material world from this service attitude? Because basically speaking, without the manifestation of that service attitude, then there wouldn't be any service at all, would there? Whether we call it material or spiritual, there wouldn't be any service because the service made itself manifest.
Okay, thank you.
And that is why we get the inclination to self, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So, okay. So actually the basic question is, if it doesn't include the material, the service in the material, what do we call it? Consciousness. Then the service in the material consciousness, where did it come from?
Thank you. I think I understand your question. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah. Prabhupada used to give an analogy that when the prime minister or the head of government goes to the prison, he enters into the prisons. And then if the prisoners think that because he comes into the prison, himself has become a prisoner, then that is completely unfortunate. Although the service manifesting from the legs of the universal form of the Lord is manifesting in the external manifest. It's an external manifest. It's manifesting in the material world, but it's a reflection of what goes on in the spiritual world. Just like in our day-to-day life, we teach our children to do something in a real sense. I give an practical example. When a student is learning how to write, the teacher holds his hand and show him or her how to write. And then if that writing nature is already existing in the child, but is brought out by that practice being taught by the teacher. So in the same way, the service attitude is externally existing. And that's why Srila Prabhupada said it is constitutional nature of the soul. It is the constitutional nature of the soul to serve the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead. But because he has forgotten due to the conditioning, just like sometimes even in a medical situation, someone becomes paralyzed due to some circumstances, and somehow or the other, the doctors revive him. Then he's taught how to walk again, even though he's been walking before. So in the same way, the service is eternally constitutional nature of the soul. But when he is covered by the material body, coming into the material world, he forgets that. And to be able to bring him back to remembrance of that. So the Lord has created the four social and spiritual orders of life, and then created the service as the center of all of that for the living entity to understand, to bring back the memory. Just like a medication for an amnesia patient. An amnesia patient, he knows, but he has forgotten. So to bring it back is, so that same thing that is similar to what he used to see before is brought before him or her. So the service is an eternal constitutional nature of the soul, but it is manifested in a perfected way in the material world to give opportunity to bring back that original consciousness, original mood of the soul, which is that of service. Because the soul, like I said in the beginning of the class, was Mamaivam Soul Jivalo, okay, is part and parcel of the Lord, and his connection to the Lord constitutionally is that of service. But when he comes into the material world, he forgets. And for him to be able to remember that service attitude, the Lord creates all of this arrangement for him to imbibe that. So the material, the service that is created or manifesting for the body of the Virat Rup, the Lord is making all of this arrangement to bring about the essence or the constitutional nature of the spirit soul, the living entity. So it is not something artificial. It is not something imaginary. It is something that is eternal, but it is brought back by this arrangement for the living entity to be able to connect back to the original service nature of itself. So service is not something material. It is spiritual. Bhakti or service to the Lord is eternal activities of the soul. But in the material world, it is put in certain arrangement for the living entity who is engaged in the material body to uncover that original mood. And that is why it is said that when we engage in the process of devotional service and we come to realize our original constitutional nature, our original swarup, then when we start serving the Lord, although we are in the material world, we are no longer existing in this material world. And it's just a matter of time. When the soul leaves this material body, it goes back home, back to God, because he has connected back to his original nature. I hope that helps a little.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prophet. Yeah, then any other question or comments?
Yeah, I have another question.
Thank you.
This question is, see, usually like the way you explain this service attitude, I mean, it brings up a lot of memories also. Like during your submission, you also mentioned that when we pervert the service attitude, then originally people will be inclined to be serving themselves. People will be inclined to serving themselves, then it extends to service to family. And then like that, it goes on and on and on, because the more materialistic consciousness you have, the more selfish you become. All right. Now we know in our everyday life also that even our old parents who never even called themselves to be Krishna conscious, but they tried their best to instill in us selflessness. I remember when I was a kid, that is what our parents used to tell us, that whatever you do, you should do it out of your heart, and you should do it. If somebody needs help, you should help the person, not thinking about what you gain from it. So they were teaching us all these things. So do we consider that act of what do we call it? The act of instilling in us that selfless attitude? Do we still consider that to be material also?
Thank you very much for the question, Prophet. The living entity's constitutional nature is that of service in any state it finds him or herself. And when it becomes embodied, when it takes the material body, because that is its nature, it reflects at different levels depending on the level of conditioning the living entity is. And that's why I was explaining that at the grossest level, because the living entity cannot afford not to serve, even if he wants to stop serving, there is no how he can stop, because that is his nature. The nature of fire is to give heat and light. You cannot take that away from the fire. In the same way, the living entity, which is part and parcel of the Lord, is a constitutional nature is that of service. So depending on the degree of his covering, he exhibits that service attitude in a different way. So now when you talk about our parents instilling service in us, because it's the nature of the soul, so to the degree at that level where our parents, our biological parents are, they try to instill that service attitude into us. And to that degree, they are connected to the ultimate service or lesser service or moral service or universal service. To that degree, they try to instill that service attitude into us. But it is also a reflection of their level of consciousness, because consciousness is the missing link. So there is never a time the living entity will be separated from service, whether it is in the grossest material level or in the advanced level of service. But the living entity will constantly serve, because that is its nature. It cannot be separated from service. So our parents, our biological parents, based on their level of advancement, in the journey of back home, back to God, wherever they are, they try to instill that into us. And that is the actual basis of several religious traditions. Now, sometimes people will say, but why is that Krishna consciousness is teaching us bhakti is the ultimate? And Jesus Christ came, even though he's supposedly a bhakta. Why is it talking about morality? Because he's talking to people at the consciousness of that level. So he gives them morality because that is the only level they can connect to. But it gives them the opportunity to serve. Prophet Muhammad, peace of Allah be upon him, is teaching service in a particular way. But the service attitude is teaching it according to the consciousness and the constitution of the living entities that he is speaking to. So that's why Srila Prabhupada, towards the end of the purport, was explaining that for one to be able to actually connect to the essence, one has to be a Brahmana Vaishnava. So a Brahmana Vaishnava, it may be at the topmost level of consciousness. It gives the same thing. There is nothing different. Actually, in a realistic sense, what our parents taught us, what our guru taught us, what our friend taught us, what our teacher in the material education teaches us are all not different. They are all giving us inclination to doing service, but at a different level of their realization or position in the arrangement of the Lord. And just like when the Prabhupada used to give an example that when you bring a Vaishya, a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, a Sudra together into a room, they will only see the same thing in the perception of where they belong to. When you bring a Vaishya into a gold mine, he sees that in a different way. When the Brahmana sees that, he looks at it and his mindset is on different things. So according to the constitutional nature or level of the consciousness of the soul, it tries to serve and it tries to share that level of realization. So our parents, back to your question, they're instilling service in us, but they're teaching us service at the level at which they are. And it is part of the absolute arrangement of the Lord to systematically bring us up to that level. And that's why I explained that at the grossest level, one is trying to serve his senses and the mind. And when one is a little bit exhausted, when it's a little bit comfortable, you start thinking, oh, I will take care of my wife, my family. But he's not thinking of them in connection to Krishna. He's just thinking, I have to take care of my wife and children. Some people even go as far as killing in the nature. I've had experiences in the course of preaching. Many people have come and said, please, Prabhu, I want you to do me that Indian juju or whatever they call it. I want to make whatever sacrifice. I want to make any sacrifice that is it. Even if it requires me to lose any part of my body. I have to sacrifice one of my family members because I want to satisfy my family member. So this is the level of their understanding. And this is how they perceive things. So, and they try to do that. So they want to serve their family. And then from the family aspect, when one becomes a little bit broader minded, he start thinking of his community. Then he start thinking of his state. He start thinking of his nation. Like that, he start expanding as the mind expands. So to the degree the mind has expanded, to that degree the living entity can actually expand the service attitude. But service cannot be separated from the living entity. There is never a time, whether in the grossest material existence, in the intermediate level, in the universal level, or in the spiritual level. At any time, the living entity is always engaged in service and is always trying to share that service to that degree that is connected to the ultimate service mood of the Lord.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'll hold on to my question. If anyone else has another question, then they can ask.
Yeah, so if anyone has another question, comments, Madhavan Prabhu, Anadi Nigdanam.
Nobody has any question?
Yeah,
So
nobody have any
can
question.
I still go ahead?
Yeah, please, Prabhu, just go ahead.
Okay. So as you are talking about how this service attitude is, we perform it based on our, what do we call it, inclination or our level,
Yeah,
based on the level that we are in. Then I guess the Lord also reciprocates accordingly, right?
absolutely.
But we see it several times in the scriptures that some people might be on that level of being really, really selfless, and they do their service completely on behalf of the Lord. Yet the Lord can go to the extent of not even revealing himself or letting the person know uh, that this service you are rendering is purely for me. But the Lord will show a completely different person who is not even in the mindset of service to him. I'll give you an example. If you read something in the Garuda Purana, the mother of Garuda, Vinta, was so dedicated to Lord Vishnu, so dedicated. That's everything. Now, Dattatreya manifested himself to Vinta, but he didn't manifest himself as a representative of the Lord, but he manifested himself as like a homeless guy who was full of, there was sore all over his body. His sore was smelling so bad, and he was asking for food from Vinta. Vinta didn't care about the smell. She didn't care about anything, and she was still rendering service to Dattatreya. But Dattatreya didn't show any sign that he is actually Dattatreya. But the children of Kadru, uh, uh, who who has such a what word do I call it, demonic mentality. Dattatreya revealed himself to two children of Kadru as himself, Dattatreya. But he warned them that they shouldn't tell anybody that they have seen him, Dattatreya. So they will come there and they will render service to him. And even Vinta was, Garuda's mother was surprised. Why is this Kadru's children, who are always very inimical to me, why are they now rendering service to my visitor? So my question is, how come that a personality like Vinta, who was so dedicated to Vishnu and have been serving this Dattatreya out of her heart, but he didn't even get the opportunity to get the revelation that this is actually Dattatreya who has come to, like, I don't know, test her or bless her or whatever it is. But the same Dattatreya will reveal himself to the children of Kadru who were so like selfish. Are you getting what I'm trying to say?
I'm following you, Prabhu.
Yeah. So the thing is, sometimes it looks as if this it discourages us in performing what we call it, selfless services, if it happens like that. Because if you read the life about Vinta and Kadru and their children and the way the Lord treated them both, sometimes if you are not very careful, you become very discouraged. So what do you think about that?
Thank you very much. Beautiful. This is a very, very, very powerful, beautiful question. If anything at all could control the Lord, that thing is greater than the Lord. And that is why Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he told the gopis that your service to me. I'm indebted. I don't have what it takes to reward your service. So let your service be the result of your service. Let it be your remuneration. Let it be my reciprocation to you. So when the Lord chooses not to manifest to somebody, we can look at this in several ways. At the base level, Lord Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Yesham tu antagata papam, kena mam punya karmana te dwandwa vinimukta bajanti mam tridavrata. That is, I'm quoting Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, verse 28, where Krishna says, persons who have acted piously in previous life and in this life, and whose sinful activities are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So when someone is engaging in service of the Lord, in most cases, from our mundane perception, like you rightly said, because we are not all on the absolute platform, most times we misjudge. So Krishna says, I don't reveal myself to everyone. Most people in the material world have no interest in him. So they want something else. You see somebody is rendering service so passionately. And in the story that you gave, when you look at the purpose of these different devotees, what they are desiring from the Lord in their service, you will be able to understand that although somebody may be rendering service very nicely, but in the heart of his heart, he is seeking for opulence. He is seeking for power. He is seeking for Krishna's blessings for a child. He is seeking this. So in most cases, the fact that somebody is rendering service does not automatically mean that God should expose or reveal himself, because God can see beyond our own perception. We can see that someone is rendering service, but for the purpose why that person is rendering that service, only Krishna can see that. So therefore, Krishna does not easily reveal himself. He decides to reveal himself only to those persons who are akinchana bhakta, those bhaktas who are completely pure, who has no motivation, who have no desire for anything other than Krishna. Those akinchana bhaktas, only them has the qualification for Krishna to in fact, they don't want to see Krishna, but Krishna is struggling. Krishna is so much working hard to see them. They're not striving to see Krishna, but Krishna is striving to see them. Krishna is seriously trying to see those devotees. But in our own conditional perception, when we see this service attitude, we cannot distinguish. So therefore, that is why it is sometimes said that only a pure devotee of the Lord can see another pure devotee, because he can see beyond the physical 8 elements of material energy: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, that covers the soul. This pure soul can see that. So Krishna says, Tesham saktakta yuktanam bajatam priti pruvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam jenamam upayanti te. And all of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. So Krishna, making himself manifested, is dependent on the internal connection, internal mood behind the service. We can see the service, but we cannot see the internal base or internal reason behind the service. So that's why sometimes it becomes confusing that, oh, Bhakta John is serving very nicely. So why is it that Krishna is not answering? Why is Krishna not benedicting him so much? Because Bhakta John, Bhakta Bull, or whatever the name is doing so much of service for a particular purpose that is not requiring Krishna's manifestation. So Krishna will reciprocate based on his internal connection to him. But there is no service that is lost. And that's why Krishna promised. There is no loss or diminution on this part, because each and every one that renders service gets benedicted. But what he gets, the reward he gets is synonymous to what is internal connection. And that is why it is said that devotees sometimes are very dangerous. Like one of my godbrothers will say, he said devotees are very dangerous, knowingly or unknowingly. Why are devotees very dangerous? They are dangerous because they are chanting the only name, the powerful, most powerful name, the Maha Mantra. And so when they are chanting that Maha Mantra, which is the most powerful mantra, and they are thinking inimical of others, they're creating a very big situation in the environment. And sometimes devotee will ask this question, oh, Prabhu, why is it that devotees will not becoming so much successful as even the material religionists? We are supposed to be spiritualists. We are spiritual people, and we're chanting very nicely. We see that devotees are chanting. They are taking austerity. They are abstaining from four regulatory principles. Why is it that there's so much of striving, of growth? Because when we are chanting powerfully, our powerful chanting is concentrating on something negative, or put it in the right perspective, not in line with the desire of the Lord. It is on basis of our own desires. So when our desires does not align with the purpose, the constitutional purpose of the Lord's manifestation of the soul, it gives an horrendous, like I said in the lecture, result. It gives something that is bewildering. So when we see the Lord more manifesting to someone, it is because he's not. Because Krishna is not a politician that promises and he will never fulfill. That is why he told Arjuna, declare it boldly, my devotee shall never be vanquished. As they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone is on my path. So Krishna not manifesting himself, that is too far, brother. Let's even see. Sometimes the devotee will say, where is that guru is so favorable to a particular devotee? Why is the guru so merciful on a particular devotee? And it's not. Is guru partial? No. The guru, because it's on the transcendental platform, he can connect with the minds and consciousness of every of his disciples, and he reciprocates in based on that. So the non-manifestation of Krishna or the devas or the Lord is dependent on the consciousness of the individual that is serving. So service is not just the criteria, but the mood is behind this service. And that is why it is mentioned in the purport that it is not out of place to just be a servant. One should not just be serving, but one should serve in a mood that will please Krishna. And that is what why sometimes it looks as if maybe Krishna is not manifesting. And sometimes, to summarize this, Krishna sometimes will not manifest himself because he wants to motivate that devotees to go deeper. So in some cases, it appears like that. Because Krishna don't want that devotee, and that is another level. And that's why I said that we can perceive this from different levels, 2, 3, or more levels. So apart from the fact that the consciousness of the person does not attract Krishna or is not wanting Krishna, the other thing is that sometimes, in the case of Dhruva or the case of Narada, sometimes Krishna will not want to show himself because he wants that devotee, he wants to motivate him, he wants him to go deeper and deeper so that he can come to the perfectional state. So sometimes Krishna does not manifest for that purpose also. So depending, but it is not in our capacity to judge, but the pure devotees can see all of this, how it relates. Hare Krishna. I hope this helps properly.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. So, okay, Madhvan Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Prabhupada. Thank you very much for today's delivery. We so much appreciate how you are helping to keep the flag flying. So I'm very sorry today. I came very late because I went to look for some markets, so I didn't come back early enough. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So, but my only two contribution, I can see that the discussion was based on service.
Yeah.
So I think we should see ourselves as eternal servants of Krishna. So in that mentality, but that doesn't mean that you will render service to your parents or some other people, even your superiors. But it's the mentality, like you rightly put it, that's service. You know, whatever we are doing, when we see ourselves as servants of Krishna, then we'll be able to fulfill our activities to that service. So Krishna also said that we should never be lacking in our basic responsibilities, which means you cannot be a father, you are not taking care of your family, and so on. But beyond that, you still, whatever is left, you use it to the service of Krishna, render service. And it's the service that we refuse that now brought us to this material world. So we have to change the mentality so that we can become qualified again to go back. That's just my little contribution, Pablo.
Thank you very much. You brought a very interesting perception onto the discussion. Yeah, sometimes when we say that service should be ultimately for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it does not necessarily mean that one should not serve the wife, the family, the members of the society, but one should serve them in relation to Krishna. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the seventh Goswami, he showed us this, how this is done. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he said, my children, my wife, my family, they are all Krishna's property. So he relates with them in the mode, in the understanding that these are not actually my wife, but they are acting in the capacity of or in the position of a wife, or in the position of a son, in the position of a, therefore, so they are not mine, they are Krishna's. So it's someone who is in that mood, even though he's rendering service to the wife, to the children, it does not become service to the wife or the children. He's doing it in. So in other words, one should not be irresponsible because he doesn't want to serve any other one than Krishna. One should serve Krishna, understanding that everything, animate and inanimate, is also part and parcel of Krishna. So he should relate with those part and parcel of Krishna in connection to Krishna. So that's a very powerful perception that you brought into it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was such a powerful soul. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he personally requested Lord Krishna, he said, give me one of your associates, let him come and serve me. So in that capacity, he's not asking for just his son. And he trained him very nicely, and he became powerful representative of God. So, and also in the Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, in the purports, one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada explained it very clearly, that it is not that one should not have affection for wife and children or family. One should have, these are natural object of affection. So they are natural object of affection. So one cannot say one would not be. One should be affectionate towards them. But they should be in connection to Krishna and in Krishna service. And that is the perfection of relationship with the society, family, and friends. Thank you very much for the contribution. Okay. There's another last question or comments? If now we'll bring it to a close for today. Thank you very much for being here. Sima Vara Prabhu, I saw that you omitted one time. You do want to give some contribution?
What about
no problem. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Yes,
no, not exactly. I have been up and down and not paying much attention. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's
Thank you
okay.
very much.
You're welcome, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, you show by example. That's how a devotee should always be. No matter how busy Prabhu is, he will always be in the class. And it just takes one word to attain pure love of Goddess. Just one word. So Prabhu shows by example his dedication to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam to all of us. Hare Krishna. Okay. In the absence of any other question or comments, I'll request all of the devotees to unmute. Let us loudly chant a loud Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate Srila Prabhupada for giving us this platform to render the ultimate service to the Supreme Personality. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Ananta Koti Vasa ki jai. Is confounder Chara Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go, glorious assembled devotees.
Hare Bo.
Hare Hare Bo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bo.